Trying to conceive and feeling overwhelmed and confused with unhelpful information and advice? This podcast is for you. Welcome to Don't Tell Me to Relax. I'm your host, Hannah Pern, a fertility acupuncturist and passionate advocate for better fertility education and support. Our aim is to empower you with information to support your fertility journey and provide a community for connection with people who get where you're at. If you'd like to join us or work with us in clinic in London or across the UK, all the information is in the show notes at the end.
AcuPips sponsors Don't Tell Me to Relax. If you're looking for a way to naturally balance your body, calm your mind and relieve anxiety, then AcuPips has the answer. AcuPips is the UK's original ear seed company, founded by traditional acupuncturist Zoe Young. Ear seeds are small seeds or metal balls attached to an adhesive and placed on pressure points on the ear in specific combinations, creating balance within the body. We like to call it healing jewellery. Discover more today at acupips.com and use code RELAX for 20% off site-wide. AcuPips. Modern healing, ancient practice.
Hello and welcome to this week's episode of Don't Tell Me to Relax. This is our final episode of this series for the year. We're actually only having a week's break, so maybe two, but at the moment it's just one. So it's not a massive break, but we thought that we would end this series by discussing the ridiculous, stupid, cruel sometimes things that people say when you're trying to conceive, the unsolicited advice that is really triggering, unhelpful, hurtful, and people often say, well, people mean it in a nice way or it comes from a good place. And yeah, I think, well, does it? I don't know. But anyway, wherever it comes from, it is not good. It is not helpful. And there is a lot of it about. And both Katie and I put up a post in our social medias and our community, and lots and lots and lots and lots of people replied with various answers. And so what we're going to do is we're going to discuss the main themes that people said and just kind of unpick it a little bit and think about alternative ways of thinking about it, discuss is there any truth in what people say, and just kind of really help highlight the rubbishness, if that's even a word, of what happens. So Katie, I mean, it must be something that you hear from patients you work with all the time.
Oh my God, all the time. And like sometimes you hear things and you're like, no, like someone didn't say that to you, because it can just be quite like outrageous. And some of the things that people submitted, I was like, what? Like,
Yeah.
and I mean, it's not being said directly to me, and I'm not struggling with my fertility. So there's part of me it's like you have to laugh, because how else do you get through it? But also, I'm like, if you were really struggling, some of those things must just feel like someone punched you. Like,
Yeah. Yeah. And I guess a lot of it is kind of quite old fashioned, isn't it? In that
yeah.
this kind of world where we understand more about fertility, the struggles that people go through, miscarriage, in the last, I don't know, probably 10 years, it's become more spoken about and less of a taboo issue. And I guess a lot of this comes from that lack of awareness in history, or the old keeping it under the carpet, keeping it personal, not discussing it. And so these things come from that era of ignorance, I guess. And now they are just so misplaced and unwelcome when we are much more aware of the damage and impact that fertility struggles, miscarriage, baby loss can have on people. I think that pain has always been there. It's just we haven't actually acknowledged it as a society before. So I hope that it will continue to change and get better, because I do feel like it is moving in the right direction. But as you say, you hear these things all the time, but I'm hoping it's from maybe an older generation.
I did have a few people say it was from like parents and like well-meaning aunties and things, and I think there might be a generational thing in it. And I guess beyond fertility, there's like the wider talk about mental health. So I suppose that landscape's changed a lot in the last
Yeah.
like decade or more. So I think it's getting better, but then also I think a lot of these comments I feel come from people that have had no one in their lives or no experience themselves of anything other than like, we tried to get pregnant and we did. So
Yes.
it's like, yeah, really misjudged.
Yes. 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 There's a lack of understanding,
Yeah.
isn't it? Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to choose a popular, unhelpful sentence or piece of advice, and we're just going to discuss it and unpick it. And so I'm going to kick off with, I feel like it's apt to start with the just relax, because I reckon I got about 50 comments that said people telling you to just relax
Wow.
or stop thinking about it was a really, really big one.
God.
And it is quite unbelievable
Oh,
how this idea of stress and saying to somebody, just don't be stressed, stop being stressed, stop thinking about it, relax, is going to be the thing that is going to A, help them relax, and B, then help them get pregnant. And so there's quite a lot to unpick. First of all, the first place that I want to say is the link between being stressed and fertility is really unclear. Fertility is defined as a medical issue. And I saw a post this week on Instagram that said if somebody had broken their arm, or if somebody was diagnosed with, let's say, a thyroid condition, they wouldn't be told to just relax and it will improve or get better. And so why do we say that to people who are trying to conceive? Fertility struggles are a medical reason, and therefore the impact of stress is not relevant. Although I will caveat that and say that stress does show up in your health and in your body systems. As we know, it shows up in your digestion, it shows up in your sleep patterns, it can suppress your nervous system, your immune system, it can certainly impact your hormones. But the degree to which it does that, and the degree to which you can say that stress is that one form of, or one reason why you're not conceiving, I don't think is possible to say at all. But I think acknowledging that it can have an impact is important, but the degree to which it can have an impact is also important to say. It's not a thick black line with an arrow going to it one to the other.
yeah, I totally agree. And I feel like when someone says to you, "Oh, just relax," it's like when someone goes, "Oh, you're a bit moody," and
Yeah.
you're like, "Well, I wasn't, but now," and it's just like, "Oh, come on!" Like it's not helpful in any way, shape, or form. It's just like, "Oh, well, I was actually feeling all right, but your perception of me is not
Yeah.
actually how I'm feeling."
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, it doesn't
Yes. It's like when someone says, "Oh, you look tired."
help.
Well, thanks. That's really done a lot. Even if you are feeling
Yeah.
tired, that's not helped in any way, shape, or
Do you know
form, has
what?
it?
We were just talking about where some of these comments come from before we started recording, and like my lovely mum, but she'll be the one that says to me, "You're feeling a bit tired, aren't you, love?" And
Yeah.
I'm like, "Oh, I've just not got any makeup on." And it's like, yeah, often these comments come from the people closest to us, which can always make
Yeah.
it harder.
I always think a general rule of life is if you can't say anything positive, just don't say anything.
Yeah.
If you can't say something positive or nice, just don't comment on the situation. That's where I come from in my world, but I don't think everybody agrees with that.
Oh, I agree. I agree.
So what have you got? Did you get some
I
corkers?
got yeah, I got you're not are you trying hard enough? Um
Oh,
and are you trying properly?
yeah.
Being two kind of together. The trying hard enough one, I think, is like if you're struggling with infertility, you're probably trying everything. And
Yeah.
like yeah, again, just not a helpful comment. And the are you trying properly one? I got a bit more context on that because it was a client of mine. It was a friend of hers went to their GP and the GP was like, "Are you having sex properly?" And they were like,
Yeah.
"Yes." But the reason he asked, well, I assume he sounds terrible, but anyway, was because they'd had a patient that was putting their penis in their partner's belly button to try and get pregnant.
No.
Yeah. So I think what that highlights is the sex education that is needed for everyone.
Yes.
Like,
Yes.
not just about menstrual cycles, but what is sex? What does sex look like? What does sex that results in a pregnancy look like in all its different forms? Because that can be a variety of different ways, even if it's just a case of there is semen on your partner's fingers and it gets in contact with your cervical mucus. That could result in a pregnancy. And just
Yeah.
like that wider context of sex education and the fact that someone out there was unknowingly trying to get pregnant by
Yeah.
putting their penis in their partner's belly button. So,
Oh my God.
yeah,
Okay, so yeah, more education,
yeah,
and also that understanding that I think when it comes to life and things that happen in life, there is this assumption that if you do everything right, so if
yes,
you do all the
that was
things,
another one I
then
had come up.
yeah. So, are you trying hard enough is a bit like when you do exams. Like if you work hard at exams and you work hard at school and you concentrate, then you'll pass your exams and then you'll get a good job and then you'll get a good house and all, that kind of um information or that story
Those
that
like
we're told.
milestones that,
Yes.
yeah, it's like, and then you have a baby, like, because that's what you
Yes.
do. And literally, someone said to me in my little question box of someone said to them, "Oh, well, I just thought you'd have a baby because you got all A stars and everything."
Yeah.
And it's like, no, like if only, but like the those links are just they're just not there. That's just not how it
No.
works.
Yeah. And it's a hard thing, isn't it? Because in life input equals output,
Yeah,
input equals success is a message that we're given a lot. But as we know, when it comes to our health and really in many aspects of our life, we don't actually have control over it.
yeah,
We think that we are human beings who are in control, and yet there is so much of it that we don't understand, we don't control. Things happen to us completely out of the blue, and they are often the hardest things for us to deal with and understand. And I know in clinic, we often see people they've really achieved well
mm,
at school. They've got a really good degree, they've got a good job, they've found a partner, they've got a house, everything's going well. And then it comes to trying to conceive, and it's assumed because
yeah,
that's what you were told that it was not going to be a problem and you'd come off contraception and you'd get
yeah,
pregnant. And when it doesn't happen, everybody is a bit understandably like, hang on a minute, I've done everything right, I've
yeah,
went on contraception, I've got my job, I'm at the right point of my life to conceive, I'm ready to
yeah.
conceive, I'm with the person that I love. Why is it not happening? I've got
It's
all my ducks in a row, and it's really difficult,
it's
isn't it,
really
to
cruel, yeah.
yeah.
And that kind of yeah, you've lived your whole life in a certain way of being like, I put the work in, I get the result, and it's just like, oh, like it's so cruel that that's just not the way this cookie crumbles. Like
Yeah.
it's really horrible, and like you see the mental toll that takes on people because, like you say, so much of life you can control to a certain degree, but with this, it's like you can do all the right things, and for some people, it's just going to be a really, really hard journey, and like trying to somewhere along the lines kind of be able to look after yourself and I was going to say get comfortable, but even then that doesn't feel right. But like just trying to go along with what you can and control what you can, but also having some acceptance of the fact that you can't control all the outcomes in this case.
Yeah. And what I often say is that it is fundamentally unfair,
Yes, yeah.
because let's remember there are people out there who drink, smoke, do all the things, eat all the things, have sex accidentally and get
Mhm.
pregnant without thinking about it. Not have sex accidentally, but have sex and accidentally get
Yeah.
pregnant is the way that I meant to say it. And that is unfair, isn't it? When people are doing, but lots of people come in and they say, I'm doing everything. I'm not drinking, I'm not
Mhm.
smoking, I haven't had coffee, I've given up my exercise. Some people give up their careers. They do all kinds of things to really support their health and give them the best chance. And still, it can take time
Yeah.
to conceive, it's not fair and it doesn't make any sense.
No, it's horrible. It's really horrible. I really feel, I mean, I've never tried to conceive, but seeing people go through it, I'm like, like hats off to you all for like trying again and again and again. Like it's not easy at all.
Yeah. One common one that came up was about going on holiday. And again, I guess that fits into the kind of just relax, stop thinking about it. But I was thinking about the going on holiday one, because you do hear
Mhm.
anecdotally of people going on holiday and getting pregnant. And I guess the reason I think that is a thing is because when you go on holiday, I bet statistically you have more sex when you're on holiday.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying you're in a relaxed environment. I think it's more actually that you are having more sex, and therefore there is a higher, if you're ovulating at that time, there is a higher chance of conception happening. So it's just purely statistical. It's nothing to do with the holiday. It's probably more to do with the more opportunities for conception to happen. And again, that comes back to what you were saying before, Katie, about sex education and this idea about how much sex to have, that people are often surprised about how much sex you need to have to conceive, because sex every other day through your menstrual cycle to probably just after you've ovulated is what the NHS guidelines recommend. And that is because, as we know, ovulation changes, you can easily miss your fertile window. And so I guess, if you are on holiday, you're more likely to have sex every other day. You've got the time, the energy, the space. You probably like your partner more because you're having a nice time together. All of those things contribute to that, don't they? So I think
say
I'm not saying there's a grain of truth. Well, I am saying there is a grain of truth in it, but it's not the holiday, it's the environment.
Yes, I was going to say, like, the kind of the circumstances which allow for connection with your partner, then you're more likely to have sex, like those kinds of things, as opposed to like just go on holiday and like you'll get pregnant because you're on holiday. It's like,
Yeah.
maybe that's
But
not quite.
yeah. And also, if you've got a sperm issue, if you've got a blocked fallopian tube, if you've got loads of endometriosis, if you've got polycystic ovaries, going on holiday is not going to help those situations because they are medical underlying reasons that are barriers to conception. So again, like, let's just be clear about what we're saying here about going on holiday. It's not the answer to everything.
No, definitely not. What ones else did I get? Yeah, lots of holidays, like just go and get drunk. So this was a nutritionist that said a client, or like multiple clients have said, their friends have said, you're not allowed to be pregnant at our wedding.
My gosh.
And it's like, what? Why?
Yeah.
Is this about kind of you won't be able to drink, and like why would that influence like the wedding? I could appreciate perhaps if that comment came from someone that had a history of like struggling to try and conceive, and if you're part of like their bridal party or something, I don't know, like it might be emotionally challenging for them for that to happen. But it's like if you're struggling to try and conceive and then you did get pregnant, if your immediate friends know about that, like surely you'd want them to be like celebrating that for you rather than like, well, you can't be pregnant at my wedding. I personally, my opinion, feel that's like incredibly selfish, and I don't understand it. Sorry.
Yeah. No, it's no. Not the one.
Not the one. Again, just like that was the thing that I was really surprised and also not surprised by, was how like outrageous some of these things were that came out. Like another one was my mechanic offered to do it for my husband, and a colleague told me to put some drugs in his yogurt.
Right.
And it's like coming from a place of maybe being like, oh, I'll be a bit funny, I've got 3 kids, so I've got super sperm or something. It's like, read the room. Like, it's not funny. It's like not helpful. I don't know how I'd respond if someone said that to me in a moment. I think I'd be very shocked and taken aback. And there's part of me that wants to say, like, have a phrase ready that you've sort of practiced to kind of kindly but firmly put a boundary in place, which I think is helpful. Like practicing those kinds of things to be like, I appreciate where you're coming from, but like that's actually really not a helpful thing to say to me. However, knowing myself, I think in the moment I would just be like, what? And quite like stunned at something like that. So I think as well, being really kind to yourself if you have a reaction to something that someone says to you that you're quite shocked by, because I was shocked by some of these comments that were coming through. And I mean, I've said this like 3 times now, I'm not trying to conceive. I imagine those feelings would be a lot more heightened when you're like in that process.
Yes, and that goes. It sort of goes into what people say around IVF, because people often
Yeah.
say, one thing that came up a lot was when people say, "Oh, you just need to go for IVF," or "IVF is the answer." And as we know, IVF for some people is absolutely the answer. If
Mhm.
you've got blocked fallopian tube, if you've got a sperm issue, if you've had to freeze your eggs for whatever reason, sometimes if you've got endometriosis, polycystic ovaries, these medical conditions that we know can have an impact on your fertility, then absolutely IVF can offer a huge solution. But we know IVF isn't always a solution for age. It isn't always a solution for unexplained infertility. And it's not a guarantee that if you go for, oh, it's as easy as going for IVF and then you will have a baby. That is not the way that it works. And I think when people say that, it's because they have absolutely zero understanding of IVF, what's involved, and actually what the statistics are around
Mhm.
it.
100%. And I think the cost behind it as well. Like, I'm in a same-sex relationship, and was looking to be like, okay, if we wanted to have IVF, this was like long before I even worked anywhere in the fertility space. And I remember just seeing the cost of it and being, I just burst into tears because it was like, oh my God, like this huge barrier to trying to have like your own biological child is so expensive. And at that point, I definitely was in that field of like, oh, well, if we want a baby, we'll just have IVF. And it's
Yeah,
like, and IVF is the idea of like, we'll use my partner's eggs and I'll carry the baby. And now I'm like, she's got severe endometriosis. Like, I would not want
yeah,
to put her through a cycle of IVF
yeah,
in
yeah,
like our relationship and our context and things. And and yeah, it wasn't until I started really like working with clients on a daily basis, going through IVF, being like, oh, it really is not as simple as societally it's spoken about. Like I was definitely naive to how grueling it can be, how it doesn't always work, and how, like you say, there are circumstances where it does, and that's wonderful, but it's not the given that it's often spoken to be.
yeah. And it's a bit like when people say things like, "Oh, you need to take this supplement," or "My
Yeah.
neighbor did this." Lots of
Yeah.
people, lots and lots of people come into acupuncture, and I bet they do for reflexology, and they say, "I've come in because my friend at work's sister's next door neighbor had acupuncture and then she got pregnant." And I'm like,
Yeah.
"That is amazing,
Mhm.
but that is only a very small part of the picture of why that person conceived. There are so many parts to a fertility successful outcome: eggs, sperm, environmental issues, timing, health, stress, immune system. There's like a million and one amazing functions that need to happen for conception to take place. So to say that that conception happened for that supplement that she started to take, or because they started to do acupuncture, or because they found this powder that they rubbed on, or whatever it is, there's a million and one weird and wonderful tarot readings,
Yeah.
things out there. I'm not saying they're not a part of the picture, they absolutely are, but they are not the whole reason.
Mhm.
They're not that. You cannot ever say, unless you're doing IVF, and I guess you're putting sperm and egg together, and then you're putting it back and you're saying it was that IVF that made the difference. It's very difficult to actually say why somebody conceives 1 month and they might not have done the previous one, because we don't understand everything. So we try and find explanation in things that we can't understand because it makes us feel safer. And that's why people come out with comments like, have you tried, oh, what was someone saying the other day? Someone said a meat only diet was recommended to her from her nutritionist. That was one of the comments that I got. And I was just thinking, that's absolutely insane. Like
Mhm.
a meat only diet. But, she'd been told that and she thought she'd read somewhere that it worked. So she gave it a go. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with giving it a go, but it's that kind of vulnerability where you're willing to try anything,
Yeah.
or it can be perceived that that one thing can make the difference, that I just think we need to unpick and understand what's actually happening when it comes to conception and a healthy pregnancy starting, and it's never that one thing.
Totally. I think, yeah, anything that claims to be like, do this and you will get pregnant, I'm like, run a
Yeah,
mile, run a mile. Like, wouldn't it be wonderful if that was the case? But I can definitely say, and I'm sure you can as well, Hannah, that like it's rarely, and I've ever seen it be just like one thing that was, you can definitively say that was it. And the same with like I think just be cautious. Like some people said about what like things that they'd seen on the internet, and like there was at the start of the year, I was seeing a lot of adverts. I can't remember what it was for, but a 21-day fertility cleanse. And
Yeah.
our client did this, and she's 43, got pregnant after 21 days of doing this cleanse. And it's like, oh, it just feels so unethical, in my
Yes.
opinion.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, I think you have to be really I can't think what the word is, but just be conscious of what you're seeing, what information you're taking in, and being mindful of like the kind of wider context of all of it.
Yeah. One of the more insane ones I got was lie with your legs up after sex, a common
Mm.
myth. I don't know where that came from. But this is also in combination with drinking wine through a straw at the same time. I mean, that's very specific, isn't it?
Very
I mean,
specific.
where, and what is the rationale behind drinking wine through a straw? Through a straw.
A
Maybe
plastic
it's
straw, a metal straw, a paper straw, if we're going to get that specific.
I
Like,
hope not a plastic one, not what we
nah.
say.
Oh, God.
Another one that comes up quite a lot is this idea around manifestation.
Yeah, I had some like visualizing things as well.
Yeah, which I was talking about with a patient actually yesterday because we were talking about the idea of hope, and it's always people always have a complicated relationship with hope when they're trying to conceive, especially when they've been on quite a long journey, and that we everybody gets very suspicious around if I hope too much, it's not going to work.
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
so if I don't hope at all, then it might work. Or if I don't hope, am I then giving out the wrong signals and it's not going to work? And it's so complicated. And all I can say is there is absolutely no proof to manifestation, positive thoughts, hope, all of those things bearing an outcome on whether you conceive or not. I guess we
Mhm,
can say that it does is it helps you through the journey. It
mhm.
helps your mental health as you go through such a really, really difficult time. But does that again? Is that the thing that gets you pregnant? I would say no. And
I
you can be unhopeful, because being unhopeful is a way of protecting your heart, isn't it, from heartbreak and devastation and loss. So going into it feeling unhopeful, protecting your energy, is a completely understandable approach to a fertility journey, and will not bear an outcome, will not influence that outcome either way. It's just a self-protection technique.
I remember you said something at some point, Hannah, of positive thoughts don't create positive pregnancy tests.
Yeah.
And I've said that to a few clients sometimes because it's like, yes, you want to look after your mental health 100%. Like, it's not always easy to go through. So, doing whatever the things are to protect your mental health, your heart, your emotions, like, yes, that's really important. But ultimately, you can't think your way into being or not being pregnant.
Yeah.
And I think that made a lot of sense to me, and I think it's helpful for some people, like that kind of, okay, yeah, I can be hopeful in things, but I can't hope my way into it working.
Yes. Yes, and I think Brené Brown talks about it a lot, doesn't she? This idea of feeling hopeful is it's going, I guess in some ways feeling hopeful is going to help you through that situation. If you can feel hopeful, the devastation, if you come from a place of not feeling hopeful and it doesn't work, the devastation will be the same as if you were hopeful and it doesn't work, because it not working is the thing that is devastating.
Yeah,
Whether you were hopeful or not is all about the journey to where you are now, to finding out whether it's worked or not. And for
yeah,
some people, and I don't think there's a right or a wrong. I think either way, whether you've been hopeful or unhopeful, it is still devastating if it's not successful, whether that's IVF, a natural cycle. So I guess it's just about finding what works for you.
yeah, yeah. I just totally agree with that. Like doing what you can to protect yourself, but yeah, the hope is yeah interesting.
Yeah. Any others that you've got before we go? This one's really, really making me laugh. She's just the lady's just put, just relax, because that fucking works. Yeah, we hear what you're saying.
Yeah. The only other kind of like theme I would say was things along the lines of age, of being like all chop, like you're not getting any younger, and then
yeah.
also, but you look so young.
Yeah.
And it's,
I mean, yeah,
they were the only kind of other like main themes that I got that we haven't already covered. But,
I got one about magic mushrooms. Someone should
really?
try magic mushrooms, and I got another one about trying to have sex in a different bed was another one, and give up your job was another one. I just think
not practical.
and get a cat.
I mean, I'm for that. I'm all for that. But I don't know if that's going to be the thing.
No.
I mean, get a cat and don't have sex. I mean, you're not going to get pregnant then, are you? So.
No. Well, Katie, thank you for doing that with me, because I hope we have helped, I don't know, alleviate some of the pain that comes, and just kind of highlighted how shit they are. And when people come up with things like that, I think just walk away. Just walk away.
Yeah, and you don't
get involved.
Yeah, you don't need to explain yourself. That's the other thing. You really don't need to explain yourself.
Yeah. So we are on a break. We've got exciting news coming up. When we come back, we've got a new community we're launching, which we will tell you all about if you don't know about it already. And we have got a whole series coming up, which is going to be looking at miscarriage and lots of different topics around that. So I hope that is going to be helpful. And in the meantime, have a lovely break over Easter, and we will see you back at the end of April, beginning of May. Thanks, Katie.
Thank you. Bye.
We hope you have found this helpful. If you'd like more on fertility education, please see our Teaching to Conceive free course linked at the end of the show. You'll also find the link to join our community. For more personalised fertility support, you can work with us one-to-one in clinic and online. You can book a discovery call to find out more.